So nice to see you, Lane.
Nice to see you, Pontus.
So welcome to this podcast then.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you guys.
Lane,
Okay.
on this podcast, we really try and cast the net very, very wide. We've had scientists and we've had university professors and we've had law professors and we've had truck drivers, and we continue to cast the net wide. And you are a medical doctor.
Yes, that is I.
We were hoping to have a conversation today about how you use Angelina Jordan in a medical way, because previous conversations I've had with you, you were explaining to me how you use it medically to help your patients. Tell us about that.
I was dealing with this one person. I thought, this guy needs a victory. I've been listening to and asking him questions, and he needs some positive input. So I said, let me show you something that really has helped me a lot. And she's just beautiful, and I think she'll be very positive in your life. And so I pulled up a song that she had done. I think I picked a fairly young one, actually, like maybe one of Adele's.
Deep down, I must have always known that this would be inevitable. To learn my stripes I have to pay and bear my soul.
And he was really immediately enthralled with that. He seemed quite happy. He came back and he brought her up, and I'd almost forgotten when I saw him again. And she says, I've been listening to her every day. She's really awesome. And so, he's just got some positive in his life now that he's able to share with other folks. And so I really recognize that. And the girls I work with, my employees, in the beginning, they would tease me about Angelina because I would talk about it with patients just as something that I thought they might like to know about, not necessarily in a medical way or for help. But now they all get it and they really appreciate it. And they all think that she can out-sing almost anyone. I have one I'm working on. Let me show you this one here. She's got one other person she thinks sings better than Angelina, and that she's known all her life and loved, have been one of her favorites. But I do bring her up with patients all the time. And one of the ways that I've used her too, I do procedures in the office, and I do a hormone pellet insertion that's just under the skin. And so that can scare people quite a bit. They want to do it, but they're scared to death. And there's a lot of people that have childhood trauma that automatically triggered. And so I would just distract them with Angelina. I said, here, check this out. You're going to love this. Listen to her. They don't even know that I've stuck them half the time. I let them get into it for about a minute or so. And then the girl that helps me with the procedure, a couple of times we've looked at each other when I put the needle in, and they didn't jump, they didn't move, they didn't say a word, they're still listening. Oh. And I'm pretty good at sicking people, but it's really been impressive what she can do in taking people away, and they start asking questions or commenting. So she's been very helpful in a lot of ways in my practice, keeping me sane too at times.
So maybe the title of this podcast should be Angelina, Opening Your Feelings plus Anaesthetic.
Right. Right. 3 years ago, I was listening to some reactions, and someone mentioned her. And so I was curious. I quickly, I say fell in love. I guess that's okay to say, because she's just an amazing person. And I've been impressed with her personality, with her ability to sing. I don't try to find fault in people, but I don't think I can find any in her. She's just an amazing individual. And I've watched the journey, you go back in the early days. And so I listen to her probably at least once a day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day.
So do you have any kind of a ritual that you use to wake up and put some Angelina on?
I try to listen to her before I go to sleep, because it just helps me. Sleep is not my greatest asset, so that's very helpful for me, just because she totally takes you away from whatever you're doing at the time, begins to disappear, and you just experience whatever she wants you to experience.
Yeah. Is there a special song that makes you relax?
There's quite a few of them that I really enjoy. What's the young man's name that she met in L.A., the guitar player?
Ivan Mendes.
Ivan, yeah. Almost anything that she did with him, I really enjoyed. The Adele songs are just amazing. He told us they were spontaneous, but there's something beautiful about that. the way it comes across. It's so real. It's just right there. And it has an ability to just calm me. And I'll listen to 2, maybe 3 songs. If I'm not in a good mood, I'll listen to a first time reactor, never heard Angelina before. That's always a fun adventure to experience someone else experiencing her for the first time. It can really make your day or turn off your day.
How was your first time then? What did you feel when you heard her for the first time?
I can't even remember what it was I heard the first time, but it was just such a, I immediately started looking for others. So it wasn't just a one-time deal and walked around with that in my head. It was quite an experience digging in. But my experience was that she was just inappropriately good, for her age. She just was not doing what you would think. I tried to compare with Shirley Temple. And that was like as good as I could come up with. And she was obviously the best until I ran across Angelina. And then it was like night and day. There was no comparison anymore. One was a child and one was a professional. So that was kind of the way I saw her. A little girl professional. I had to follow her and to see, I think some guy on a reaction, he put a comment, says, I'm 70 years old and I've never heard a voice like hers at that age. I want to live to be 100 years old, mainly just so I could see what this girl does. On my dying breath, I'll be, darn, I'm not going to see what happens in the next 20 years to Angelina.
I'm curious how you work that into your procedure. Do you have a TV screen there and you show the video, or is it just sound?
It's my cell phone. I'll dial it up, pick it up, and then I just hand it to them. They're laying on their side and they get, heads on a pillow and they just watch Angelina.
Do you pick a special song for them?
That's a little bit individualized as well, but I also ask them what kind of music they like, because there's a lot of genres available that you can choose from. Or maybe I will pick one that some of her favorite, Amy Winehouse, or Billie Holiday or something like that. But I try to individualize it. And if not, I'll pick up something like I'll Put a Spell on You, the 9-year-old version of that,
Yeah, that'll knock you out real fast.
Yes.
So you have to make a musical diagnosis at the same time you make a medical diagnosis.
Right.
And what kind of patients do you have? Like, what's the age range?
I'm board certified in family medicine, but I'm also board certified in anti-aging medicine. So I get a lot of older folks, but I get a lot of younger folks. My specialty is kind of helping those people modern medicine has failed. And so I get people with this big, long list of problems. I think fear is a big promoter of pain. Fear and anxiety just make pain much more exaggerated. And when you take that out of the equation, then a lot of that goes away.
What's the most striking reaction you've received from one of your patients when you put Angelina on?
There's a lot of people that just have all sort of accolades to say about her once they hear her, even the very first time. But I think one that I brought her up maybe a couple of years ago and had not really come up since then, but then said, no, I still listen to her every day. And so I said, well, that's really great to hear. I'm really glad that she's been good for you because she's just amazing. You want to say things like she's good for the world because we all talk about that sort of thing. So that's where that person is going to know what I'm talking about when I say that. And so the people that have been listening to her for a while will get that straight away.
I get a sense that you help people change their lives in some way that makes them healthier. Is that an accurate description of what you do?
Yeah, that's very accurate. And then, you come up with questions for patients to get them to think about it.
I find it's very interesting that your brief and your focus is to improve people's lives, to make them a better person. And that's exactly how we view Angelina Jordan's mission and what she has stated herself. So I find that a very interesting overlap between the type of work that you do and the type of work that Angelina does.
I think she's a kind of a global thinker. She thinks broadly. That's, and I definitely am. Big picture concepts are important to me.
Have you had discussion with other GPs about Angelina Jordan? Have you had any other GPs who you've somewhat converted in her direction, who are able to use her in a similar way as yourself?
I actually did talk to one of my colleagues at the anti-aging conference. So, and I was showing him Angelina like I do anybody I care about. And had mentioned, I said, I've been using her in my practice, and mentioned that to him. And so he wasn't a GP, though. He was an ophthalmologist. That's as close as it's come for that.
One of the things that I find so intriguing about Angelina Jordan is that she gives me sort of like a hope for mankind. It's amazing to me that a person can be so good at something that she is, and can be confident and humble at the same time. And it's almost like a role model, really, for living your life, for me anyway. And I think that's a great thing, because what you're trying to do is also guiding people how to live their lives in the best possible way. And I think that's similar in what Angelina is doing for me. I mean, you're talking about eating correctly, sleeping good, exercising, moving about. Those are like the 3 top things you can do to really change your life around if you're not feeling well. And then if you add Angelina Jordan to that mix, then you're happy inside too all the time.
Right.
Because, I mean, all people don't have that same reaction, of course. But some, like you said, some people that come back to you and say, oh, I'm still listening to her every day. And I mean, if you can reach those persons, maybe you can start like a revolution in treating people, because it's like one more tool in the toolbox, really.
Right, right. So I could start out with diet, exercise, good night's rest. You always tell people, think good thoughts, right? That would be Angelina, because she's like just happiness at the end of the day, or whenever you listen to her. Even if you get bad news, there's something in the back of my head dealing with something like that, or stress that comes up, whatever. And then I've got an extra tool, to deal with that. And truthfully, she's grounding. She's really very powerful in what she does, but she really is such a total positive in your life. Once you get to know her, and especially, the more you learn about her, the more she becomes the full package. Her backstory is just amazing. 1,000,000 miles is a tool that she gave us. And I think that was on purpose, to help us deal with pain, especially the loss of a loved one, who doesn't experience that in their lifetime. You now have one more way of handling that. And she grabs your emotions and takes you where she wants you to be. She really is, I think, a final piece, a little extra for everybody that makes life a little better.
This is why Pontus and I started this podcast, because we feel the same as you, Lane, that Angelina is a total positive. So far, we have had 30 episodes describing what is a total positive. And everyone has their own definition, and everyone has their own personal reaction. But total positive is such a wonderful, general, accurate term that we can just elaborate on.
And also, there's so few total positives in the world today. I mean, the news is all about negative things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it's sort of in the human nature to complain and to focus on the negative. So it's so refreshing to have something to go back to, and this is going to make me feel better.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that, Pontus, because I was thinking about something, because many, many people are closed off emotionally. They don't feel, they have very limited emotional scope, because when they were very young, they had unpleasant emotions, and instinctively, for survival instinct and for comfort, they narrowed their emotional world, so they felt less and less and less. And this is very common, and it's not rocket science, and it's something that many people recognize. But what is very, very rare is what has happened to Angelina Jordan. She is just the opposite. She had so many good and pleasant and wonderful experiences that she instinctively, from the inside at a very young age, made an unconscious choice to open herself up. And she is so open emotionally, and it is so rare for that to happen. And she recycles that and captures that in her music. And I think that is one of the reasons why she is so rare, because she has captured something which psychologically and culturally and socially doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, she fearlessly uses that to take off on any emotion. I know she's coming back to a beautiful reality when she finishes the song.
Yeah, it is a beautiful reality, and beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, but, maybe there is a universal beauty somewhere.
She seems really confident, even though she goes off on these experiences, these various emotions, because I know she experiences it when she's singing it. She's in it. And when people commented, how did she know how that feels? And maybe she got it from the songs themselves. She could empathize with those people and their sound, that what they were singing about, and she felt it too, because a lot of the best jazz singers, they had really rough lives. And so when they sang, you could feel that emotion. It is transferable. That's how we're supposed to keep part of our communication capacity as human beings. And so I think she draws on what that song made her feel to be able to recreate that, because we don't think she's really had those experiences, but she certainly seems to be able to convey them. Her foundation just seems so strong. And I think it was from a beautiful upbringing, and the support that surrounded her is amazing. The family went all in and to be behind her. What's that feel like as a kid? As a child, that your family just says, we're going to start living our lives with you, for you, so that you can realize this dream, and we're going to live it with you.
Yeah, but her mother always says, you must finish school first. And she's always on about the school. And I don't know if you heard her version of Rehab, the Amy Winehouse song, where she's changed the lyric to, they made me go to school, but I said, no, no, no.
No.
They try to make me go to school. I said no, no, no.
It's a brilliant piece of work, the lyrics, what she's done with it, because it's really a good case of, how is school really? Is it the best education you can get? Or is it better to travel the world if you have the means to do so and learn from other people?
There's something to be said for normality. And I think it's good to stay in school, but it's also good to have the routine of normality when you're 5 and 10 years old. And there are a lot of 5 and 10-year-olds who have a good life and who are protected. But to survive the teenage years, to still have that same protection and same innocence, that is where the challenge is, because a lot of 10 and 12-year-olds, that's when they start seeing the world and they become cynical and jaded and angry and upset. But Angelina Jordan has remained totally intact, and to reach the age of 17, relatively untouched, it appears, that is a pure extra bonus for her.
And for us, as her surrogate father, all of our grandfathers, it's really nice for us to see. It is amazing. I sort of been holding my breath for a lot of this, time, just going to see how she handles this, And I had a fair amount of confidence that she would go through it very nicely, and we would all be proud of her and relieved and happy of how she's handling her teenage years.
Before you go, I must ask you, do you have any requests for what to end this podcast episode with? What kind of song from Angelina would you like to see here at the end?
I like her new one that she was doing, the FIFA. I wish they had the Supernova DNA. And I just thought that was spectacular. She did a really good job. And she looks so awesome. She always does. So here she is on one of the biggest stages there are.
Yeah.
The supernova DNA appeals to your medical background, does it?
Well, I think there's some inheritance there that's probably involved with a lot of our outcomes, or at least the potential. I think A Million Miles would be good, just because we were talking about the fact that this is a song that's, I think, purposefully done, that she decided to share that with the world so that people would really be able to benefit from that. I would say California Dreaming,
Yeah.
right? California
Yeah.
Dreaming.
Is that one of the songs you make your patients watch?
It could be. No, that's for me.
I think
That was for me.
that's good. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the songs where her interpretation is so unexpected in a way. But when you hear it, it all makes sense. If you listen to the lyrics, she's really gone into the lyrics and said, there's something here that's a little bit more ominous.
Ah.
She's picking up on the lyrics there with the sky is gray and the leaves are brown. And it's like she's painting a picture of something's bad about to happen, I think.
Well, she certainly tends to expose either a different meaning for songs that she's done or telling of it in such a more obvious way that you really pick up on what the words are saying, where you may not have paid hardly any attention to them before because she's such a storyteller. That's what's always interesting with, the songs she does. I made a list of all the commenters and what they would say, the different little phrases that I thought were just amazing descriptions as they try to explain what they've just experienced with Angelina. And she makes it a story, and you really begin to appreciate songs more completely after she has sung it.
That's true. Okay. You have that list still with you?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I looked through there the other day and I go, oh, that's Alan.
Oh, that's cool.
Before I really knew who you were, I had to put that down.
Yeah.
And I said, I recognize him, met them.
I have a few catchphrases. Hello, universe. Welcome to my world. And okay, gang, I'm out of here. I'll catch you later.
Right. Sure. Yeah. But this was your description of her.
Yeah, I have a lot of descriptions of her.
Yeah. There's endless different descriptions of her out there, and they're all amazingly accurate and revealing from one direction or another.
Yeah. There's some kind of saying or some kind of theory about the wisdom of crowds. Have you heard that one?
Yes.
The theory goes that if you take like a big jar and fill it with marbles and you put it in a window and people have to guess how many marbles in the jar. And then if you take all those numbers and you divide them, the average number is always very, very close to the actual number.
Wow.
It makes sense. It's really interesting.
So sometimes I think about that when people are praising Angelina and they're basically saying the same things over and over again. And I say to myself, well, then it must be true. Somehow.
Right.
I wonder if we can divide Angelina Jordan fans into different categories, not just with age, but either in terms of background or intellectual versus over-emotional. Maybe long-term, someone will do a study on different types of Angelina Jordan fans.
That would be really interesting. I have found in my own practice and to some degree on the internet that there's a surprising number of engineers, which aren't necessarily known as romanticists or big fans of music even. And they tend to really find her attractive. And it may be because it's an opposite part of the brain that she uses a lot of time for the music and her creativity. I would bet, we would get those who identify with her thinking style maybe, and then those that are attracted to it because it's the opposite. We tend to make sure we have those people in our lives to help us have a balanced life.
We had a recent podcast where I suggested that she also appeals to people who are shy and introverted, because she breaks through a certain barrier and she opens them up in a way that they don't usually have access to. And so people who are shy and held back have some type of emotional breakthrough. And maybe this can be used in a medical way.
Yeah. She's, I kind of use the term grounding. I don't know if you've ever grounded, you probably have, but when you ground yourself, you step outside barefoot onto the ground, you literally bleed off excess charge, right? And you can feel that. You can feel the difference.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that she's all things to all people, but she is more than anyone else I can name, because she reaches people who are over-emotional, she reaches people who are shy, she reaches people who are intellectual. Not everyone all the time, but she covers just like with her genres, she covers a much wider range of people who she can reach than an ordinary singer or an ordinary artist, or almost anyone in any field. There's a universal quality about her that breaks through so many different levels and so many different barriers.
She definitely does. But I don't know that everybody's going to be able to get the information out about how healthy she is to have in their lives, you know, how much that can make a difference. That's a different message that your podcast is working on doing. So there really is something here to be appreciated and a benefit to everyone that encounters her if they will pause long enough to recognize it.
Lane, thank you very much. You've been great, and you've given us lots of challenges with how to edit this.
Sorry about that.
That was a neutral comment. That was not a criticism.
It was very interesting to talk to you about this. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you all having me on. It's been a lot of fun. I'm honored. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Lane. It's been great having you on.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All the leaves are brown and the skies are gray. I've been full of work in the such a winter day. I've been safe and warm. If I was in the lake, California dreaming, oh, in a such a winter day. Stop into a church I passed along the way. Well, I got down my knees and I pretend to pray. You know the preacher, like the cold, he knows I'm gonna stay. California dreaming, oh, and it's such a winter day. All the leaves are brown and the skies are gray. I've been full of in this such a winter day. I've been safe and warm if I was in a lake. California dreaming, oh, it's such a winter day. California dreaming, oh, and it's such a winter day. California dreaming, oh, and it's such a winter day.